everyone, and welcome back to Bystander channel. I'm Elris from Team NDL, and yeah, I guess third time is the charm. Today I bring you, as you can see on the table, a cubic list that I put together, which I think is really cool and just very fun OTK deck. We're going to go through the cards as usual, but as things that I did recently, as you may be able to see on screen, I do have some kind of a way to just show you the card for cards for those who do need to skip for their time and save it for them. So I'm keeping doing this in deck profiles on my channel, as well as I asked Bystander and we modified the guest upload for him on my channel to do that as well. So I think that's just a really cool thing. Also, I whipped up my Dark Side of Dimensions playmat because I thought that's really cool. But without further ado, let's jump right into the list. And if you want to check my channel and see more awesome decks like this, and in terms of what I do, just go check out. Links will be in the description. And also, if you are interested in Bystander's list this week, you can also go to his channel. Also, why I did it like that, I want to show all of the core monsters. So starting things off, we have 3 copies of Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord, then 3 copies of Duja, and then 3 copies of your V-Jum, the Cubic Seed. Now let me go through all of these 3 very much so briefly, because Cubic is a deck that is very much known, but I just want to go through them briefly. So V-Jum is just here because it's just a good normal summon that you can normal summon or stall if you're forced going first. But this is the go second version. If you have an extra deck that you want to change for these kind of situations, I am not going to share up mine, but you're more than welcome to do your own, because honestly, a side deck for this one should be easy. Just put mandatory cards and cards that just help you go first. But regardless, this card is just a card that just lets you to just sit on it, put counters, but mostly, if you do not open up with a way to see your Duja, you just go into this and this go into a Link Haribo or something, which is also really cool. As for Duja, he's not a hard once per turn, and he can just pretty much send for you a cubic card from your deck to the graveyard, and you're mostly going to send up the spells and traps, as well as, how should I say this? He can gain 200 attack for each monster with a different name in your graveyard. So he also can just pretty much become bigger, so that's also very nice. Lastly, for the main boss monster of the deck, which is Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord, this one can only be special summoned if you reveal 3 cubic cards with different names, including himself. So if you have another copy of him in your hand, you can still reveal 3. It will count as one of the different ones, so you can reveal this one. And let's say you have additional copy of this, this, and this. You can summon this, the first one, and just move on, which is really cool. Secondly, the card is unaffected by monsters whose original attack is less than 3,000, so he's not affected by anything but less than 3,000, even your own cards, in terms of monsters, so just do understand that. And then he can attack twice and burn your opponent for 3,000 until during the end phase. So just, yeah, the attack twice is not a harder once per turn, but the other one, which is the burn for 3,000, is a harder once per turn, so do keep that in mind. But pretty much, as you can see, OTK machine by himself, your searcher and starter, and your staller if need to be in your deck. But that pretty much does it for the 3 off cubics. Now we'll move on to the 3 1-offs cubics, which we have 1 copy of Buster, I believe the name, yeah, Buster, 1 copy of Indoria, and 1 copy of Gera. These are not really doing anything for the most part, they're mostly just names. These 2, because they're just big cubics, so you can just distribute 3 and get big beat sticks if you need to. And this one is just because it's easy to summon and is good for time to burn your opponent for 800. And that's pretty much does it for them, not really much to say about that. But this can attack 3 times, so that's really cool if you need to, and can become 3,000. And then for the last monster of the deck, you're running 3 copies of Summoner Monk, because you discard a spell, which most of your cubic spells and traps you wouldn't want to discard anyway, but yeah, he only discards spells. But he pretty much summoned for you directly from your deck, either another copy of himself in need be, or you can summon Duja directly from your deck, which is really good. And it's either a rank 4, a link 2, whatever you specifically need for that situation. So that's really nice to have. So 3 copies of this guy. But that's pretty much does it for the monsters. No hand traps. You'll see what I mean, why not. But also specifically, this is a deck that specifically don't really like hand traps that much. which again, you will see why. But I do have some ways to help you go second, so do not worry about that. So first off, for the spells of the cubics, we're running 3 copies of Karma, followed up by 3 copies of Dharma, followed up by 3 copies of Wave, and lastly, ending up on 3 Foolish Burial Goods. Now these are your 12 core spells of the deck. Foolish Burial Goods can just send anything to the graveyard in terms of spells and traps, so that's really important. Dharma is sending a cubic card, which can be any cubic card, and then draw a card. And then if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to retrieve a cubic monster from your graveyard, so you can do that for this one, which is the new thing. But unfortunately, it's a hard once per turn. As for... sorry, this is Dharma. This is Karma. Karma, on the other hand, is that if it's in your graveyard, you can banish it, and then you can just search a cubic monster. Doesn't really matter, it's not a hard once per turn. Also can halve your opponent life, but it's mostly doesn't matter that much. But yeah, I give you the option for that. And then you have Wave, which is like an OTK machine by itself as well, just making your monster kind of getting a Dark Rebellion kind of an effect, which is really, really cool, as well as have a nice effect in the graveyard to just get rid of stuff, which is just really, really cool as well. So these are your core spells. Your Searcher, your Discarder / Recruiter from the graveyard, I guess, or should I say Recycle from the graveyard, your OTK tool, and your cards that just get you to all of them, which is just pretty much it for that. As for the additional spell, which is the reason why we do not run hand traps, is 3 Monster Gate and 1 Reasoning. These cards are absolutely amazing. If you open up with a monster, you normal summon it, you can just get rid of it and just send so many spells and traps to your graveyard. Even monsters themselves, because this cannot be normal summoner set. Same goes for the free one-offs cubics. The only 9 monsters that you can summon are Vijam and Duja and Summoner Monk. These are the only ones that you can summon. As for Reasoning, same idea, but better. You do not need to tribute anything, but your opponent will sometimes call for. You could low roll with these, I'm just going to say that. But when you high roll with these, it's just absolutely an amazing advantage. So I just think like running these are just a lot better than running something like a Desires. But again, it's up to you for what you want to run. As for your board breakers, we're running 3 copies of Chalice and 3 copies of Super Poly. I know these are sounding weird, but I'm going to explain these because I think these need a little explanation. I would run something else as it stands right now, but because of Numeron and because I don't have the money for Imperm, I'm running the budget player's Imperm to just deal with S0. So I think like Chalice is just really important right now. It's also helping you provoke some particular just very useful effects for your opponent's side of the field, because sometimes it's just going to be build a board of negations. And most of the time they have like 1, maybe 2 spell and traps negations, and you can just poke them off and then just use your normal spell and traps negations, which you do really, really need. So that's really nice. Super Poly to just get rid of something and just like, super poly it. So that's really, really easy on that department. Like I said, if you have any other thing else that you want to run instead of these, like Dark Ruler, if you feel like it's really mandatory, or Cold by the Grave, or Imperm, or any other trap or spell that just really good against your opponent, or even a hand trap at this point, or a Kaiju, switch those. But these are the 6 spot cards that I felt like just being very, very useful for me. But that's pretty much does it for that. And that does it for the spells. For the traps, we only run 1 of each of these, which is just the traps, Unification, Ascension, and Calamity. We're running 1 of each of these, which I'm going to explain. So, one thing that a lot of people don't know, and I actually didn't know until recently myself, is that Unification can only activate if Cubic Monster left the field. Xyz Summoning doesn't count. Link Summoning does, but Xyz Summoning doesn't count. So if you do Foolish this with Duja, you cannot banish this immediately. You have to get rid of that Duja before you just summon this. And something that I was in the wrong a little bit for a while, before people just like corrected me, as well as just generally, I just seen this card like being really, really much of a brick, because if this was a spell, I would say this card is amazing. But because it's a trap, it's a problem, because you cannot discard this with Summoner Monk. Same goes for this thing. This allowing you to just force 3 V-jumps on your opponent, and just, making your reasonings and stuff like that better, which is also really nice. But again, it's a trap. It's not a card that you really need unless some specific situation is going first. And for Calamity, well, it's probably the worst out of all of these, but still, they're giving you additional names and spells and traps that just help strengthen your deck, so just running these 3 as one off each, I think, is just more than enough, but again, it's up to you. And that's pretty much does it for the main deck. Now we'll move on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, pretty straightforward. I do run with different sleeves because these archetypes, or should I say, these cards belongs to other decks, and I just didn't really want to take them out of their sleeves, but most of the time I do make a normal extra deck just specifically for this one. It just really doesn't matter for the most part. But Gustav Max because of the 2 additional 1,000 points of damage if you need them. Baguska because if you're forced going first. Abyss Dweller, same idea. Dugaris if you need the additional draw, which sometimes do come up, which you're able to just get a Duja and number 60, and then just pretty much making it cannot target this guy, by the way, for his effect, just to let you remind you, because it cannot be affected by monsters with 3,000 attack or less, but it does give you either the ability to draw and discard, which is really good, or the ability to Monster Reborn, which is another Foolish Burial with Duja, which is also really good if you have another Duja or something in your graveyard that you can just, a target to begin with in your graveyard before you detached, because you do need a target in your graveyard to activate the effect of the Monster Reborn. Just going to say that in terms of ruling. But that does it for the Xyz. For the Foolish Burial, or should I say for the Foolish Burial, for the Super Poly targets, Mud Dragon of the Swamp, Earth Golem, Starving Venom, and Invoked Elysion. This is just because Invoked is a thing, and it's still going to be a thing, I believe, with Dragma, whatever their name for the TCG. This one because Darks, this one because of Cybers and Salomon Greats and all that stuff, and this one's also just really, really useful. And lastly, for the links. First off, 3 link ones, Salomon Great, Olmirage if you need something for your monk, Link Haribo, and Anima. Anima is the one that you mostly go into if you're going with VGem, because you can take something for your opponent most of the time. Beat Cop for a generic link 2, because sometimes you don't want to go into your Phoenix, because you're just wasting a pop if you're going first, so this is an option. Unicorn, because same idea, and then Zoroboros if you are forced for a little bit of a grind game, so you just be able to banish everything, which is really good. But that's pretty much does it for the extra deck, and does it for the deck profile. It's a pretty simple, straight out of deck profile. It's not really something too crazy. Cubics are very straightforward. There's nothing really much to explain. There are some different versions if you want to run Desires or different hand traps that you're more than welcome to. But this is just something that I specifically found to work quite a bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. So hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Bystander, and maybe even check my own channel. Again, see you next time, maybe in a month or 2 here again, or on my own channel. Just once again saying that, remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, stay safe,